The way it all unfolded was unanticipated, genuine, and completely out of control. On a live feed that has since gone viral on all social media, Remy Ma, the ferocious rap queen turned reality TV icon, completely lost it, leaving viewers speechless, jaws dropped, and hearts racing. Hashtags like hashtag #PA hashtag Remy, and hashtag snaps became popular in a matter of minutes. Fans frantically tried to fast-forward, review, and comprehend the insanity that had just transpired in front of them. When Remy Ma, who was visibly nervous, walked on screen and confronted a lady who is now widely believed to be Papoose's accused side chick. What had begun as an apparently informal late-night Instagram live from a mutual friend's party took a terrifying turn. This moment was pure TV gold. Remy demanded answers, her voice cracking. The woman was taken by surprise and attempted to defend herself, but Remy would not have it. What started out as merely words quickly escalated into yells, shoves, and a physical brawl that was so furious that supporters could barely believe they were witnessing it live. This is where things become even messier, though. Yes, our Remy Ma was detained a few hours later. Grainy videos of handcuffs, flashing lights, and police cars were uploaded by spectators. The internet is currently experiencing a total collapse. Was it truly self-protection? Papoose is quietly living two lives. And who is this unidentified woman at the heart of one of the year's most significant celebrity relationship scandals? According to numerous sources close to the couple, this has been simmering for months. Unusual phone calls, late-night texting, accusations, and remounting misgivings have all culminated in one dramatic moment. As this real-life drama plays out like a scene from Love and Hip Hop, fans are furious. Friends of both parties are split. And the music industry is intently observing. I agree that it's not scripted this time. You believe you know Remy? Mom? Do you believe that you know Papoose? Rethink your plan, because I simply alter everything. You won't believe the depth of this narrative, we assure you. Glitz, glitter, and what appeared to be just another celebrity get-together in the center of New York City marked the start of the evening. Bottles were popping, cameras were flashing, and influencers were going live to tag celebs they saw in the background and flaunt their attire. It was all about harmony, positive energy, and the appearance of hip-hop royalty. However, nobody expected the drama that was going to explode on film and rock the internet. For many years, Remy Ma and Papoose were regarded as one of the most inseparable couples in hip-hop. They supported one another like pillars of trust through thick and thin prison time, loyalty tests, and family struggles. They were referred to by fans as the Bonnie and Clyde of the contemporary rap scene. Unbreakable, unshakable, and untouchable. All of that, however, was about to fall apart tonight in the most startling and unvarnished way imaginable. One of Rhee's close friends, a hairstylist in the business who is known for showing up at every performance, started a random Instagram live stream for people to watch. People's attention was drawn to this tragedy very quickly. Amidst the well-known faces, grins, and giggles, there was a woman standing suspiciously near Papoose. At first, the viewpoint was unclear, but it was hard to deny the electricity between them. Commenters immediately began asking who she was, why she was laughing with him in that manner, and why his body language was so personal. The conversation was filled with conjecture in a matter of minutes. Who is this long, curly-haired woman wearing the red dress? Papoose whispered something in her ear. But why? Where is Remy Ma? More importantly, whispers behind the camera were audible to viewers as the live stream went on. The room started to grow tense. The phone shifted and the stream trembled, at which point anarchy ensued. With storm-like intensity, Remy strode in from the far end of the party area. Once happy and oblivious, the throng started to move uncomfortably. There was a problem. There was more than anger on her face. It was an outpouring of sadness, anger, and betrayal, all combined into one. Ignoring welcomes and perplexed looks, she strode across the floor. Every step was caught by the live. Her heels squealed like alarms. She had her hands clenched. She had a heaving chest. The camera remained motionless, though the one holding it knew something significant was going to happen. It remained frozen in place. Then it took place. When Remy got to the woman next, to Papoose, he immediately let loose a rage that surprised even the most experienced partygoers. People tried to step in, chairs were thrown over, beverages spilled, voices started to rise, and shouts were heard. As security rushed to manage the situation, a tremendous crash reverberated across the room. Viewers had a clear view before the individual holding the phone backed away in fright, causing the live stream to shake violently. In a matter of seconds, there was total anarchy as Remy lunged. The woman flinched and Papoose attempted to block the strike. The video was cut, reposted, and shared on many platforms in less than an hour, garnering millions of views and hundreds of reactions, of opinions. Headlines started to appear. On Sidechick Live, Remy Ma does not hold back. Is entangled in a romantic triangle. Remy Ma has an arrest warrant issued. Even after the stunning incident, Remy's night wasn't over yet. The gathering ended in complete chaos following the altercation. In startled silence, the guests left, with her closest pals by her side to protect her from the flashing phones of bystanders. Remy departed the venue accompanied by security. She couldn't be concealed, though. No more. Every viewpoint, glare, and tearful expression was captured on film. The NYPD was already waiting outside the venue when she returned to her car. Witnesses reported that within minutes of the occurrence, police had been summoned. The woman in question, whose identity has not yet been formally verified, is thought to be a rising model who frequently dates well-known individuals in the industry. She apparently stated in a statement on the scene that she had been attacked without cause. She was sent to a private hospital for assessment after allegedly displaying obvious bruising. Not long later, Remy was arrested. The internet exploded. The fans were in awe of what they were witnessing. Once more, a queen in prison. For less than an hour later, this mug show-tappered. Even though she didn't say anything, the anguish in her I spoke louder than 1,000 tweets ever could. Social media sites were on fire. Supporters were sharply split. Remy was defended by some who praised her for refusing to back down and claimed that her actions were the consequence of emotional provocation. Others questioned her judgment, denounced the violence, and questioned how this could occur following years of stability and progress. However, Papoose's silence was possibly the most disturbing aspect of it all. During the pandemonium, he had remained silent, not on the internet, not at the event, and not even to defend Remy. Fans began making connections in an attempt to ascertain if this was a singular error or the consequence of months of betrayal occurring behind the scenes. But the silence was louder than anything else. When previous interview snippets started to surface, there were instances where Remy had alluded to not trusting those close to her, or where she chuckled uncomfortably off. Suspicions of adultery, everything started to change. The pieces of the puzzle were fitting together, and the picture they created was one of secrets, misgivings, and repressed anger rather than love and trust. Remy's friends said she had been suspicious for some time due to rumors of late-night phone conversations, mysterious disappearances, and a new acquaintance named Papoose, who she had been seen with multiple times. Rumors of mysterious disappearances and late-night phone calls. Additionally, it was rumored that Papoose, a new acquaintance, had been hanging around in Ree's inner circle for months. However, nobody ever believed she would follow through. Not in this manner. The couple's closest friends and family were caught off guard. According to reports from Remy's longtime makeup artist, Remy had been mentally unstable for weeks before the incident. She had canceled several meetings, seemed distant, and even broke down in tears during a session when asked whether she was okay at home. It was obvious that the strain of juggling a career, raising a family, and continuously defending her reputation had been increasing. The weight was causing Remy to break. At this point, the world had witnessed her breaking. But after the initial arrest, just as things were starting to calm down, the timeline took another turn. One that would plunge Jacques even more deeply into the disaster that was developing. Someone claiming to have been at the event released a leaked audio tape. The video showed a lady boasting about her relationships with a married man in the game, in a voice that was uncannily identical to the one Remy had spoken to. Despite being sloppy and muted, the clip was damaging enough to raise suspicions. At first glance, fans thought it was aimed at Papoose. Additionally, unofficial evidence was catching on like wildfire. Whether Papoose was cheating was no longer the question. How long has it been happening? Did anyone else know? And why wasn't Remy warned? Before she had to live, the worst conceivable way to find out. This situation had formally changed from a love story to a betrayal saga, becoming something that no one could have predicted. New footage from earlier in the party before the attack appeared just as the internet was processing all of this video revealed Remy observing from a corner, her gaze fixed on Papoose and the unidentified woman, a drink in her hand, her face impassive. She had witnessed everything. She had been observing it. Furthermore, her action wasn't impulsive. It was emotional, intense, and well-planned. This tale was far from finished as Remy was now in jail. Its claimed side chick was receiving medical attention. And Papoose was dealing with a virtual storm of criticism and charges of treachery. Oh no, if you were expecting to be the climax, was only the start. The pandemonium didn't end peacefully the next morning. It seemed as though everything had changed in an instant as the sun rose over the metropolis. Reports regarding Remy Ma's arrest made headlines, including TMZ, The Shade Room, Hollywood Unlocked, and even mainstream media like CNN, Entertainment, and The New York Post. The NYPD precinct was inundated with paparazzi. In front of Remy's house, reporters set up camp. Her crew fell silent. There was no statement from her spokesperson. She stopped using social media. Nevertheless, the internet continued to become louder. Fans started analyzing every second of the live video, slowing it down frame by frame, figuring out who was in the background, making assumptions about body language and facial expressions, and even lip-reading the words spoken prior to the altercation. Before Remy walked in, one user said they could see Papoose anxiously glancing at the camera. Another maintained that the side girl made a smug face just before the occurrence, as though it were prearranged and she knew what was going to happen. Theories of conspiracy arose like wildfire. According to some, the woman purposefully provoked Remy, knowing that she would react. Others said Papoose had been leaving hints all along and had become more aloof in recent months. Appearances with Remy were cancelled. Ominous posts about the truth coming to light and lyrics to songs that fans were now suspiciously re-listening to. All of a sudden, every minor detail from the previous few months was being scrutinized again under a magnifying lens. Images that used to seem like romantic relationship photos now seemed staged. They had previously attended events together, but now they were being watched closely for hints. The deeper cutbacks followed. Individuals searching inside their close circle for past liaisons, potential betrayals, or any hint of adultery that would account for this public breakdown. Then came the second big twist. Using purported receipts. A former stylist who had collaborated with Remy Ma and Papoose came out anonymously and spoke exclusively to a gossip blog. The woman who got into the fight, she said, had been there for a long time. Initially presented as a creative partner for a project that Papoose had been working on in private. According to reports, their work sessions eventually turned into hotel reservations, late-night meetings, and mysterious emergency travel. The stylist explained how Remy's mood changed significantly in the weeks that followed her. Question about charges on a credit card that didn't make sense? The insider claims that weeks before the party, Remy had already had a private confrontation with Papoose, but he denied everything. Allegedly, he accused Remy of allowing her paranoia to overcome her and termed it business. the seed was sown at that very time. A seed that at last, the night she lashed out at Live, it broke through the surface. There was more to this than treachery. It was about being humiliated and having trust betrayed in the most egregious and heartbreaking way imaginable. Remy was allegedly refusing to talk to anyone back at the precinct. Her release was arranged by her prompt arrival of legal counsel. She returned home in a few hours after bail was posted, but the harm had already been done. Her walk of shame, her mugshot, and the barrage of cameras were all forever engraved in the public consciousness. The climate inside the house where she and Papoose lived was described as frigid. Papoose was spotted pacing the driveway, according to neighbors. Others said that late into the night, they could hear loud arguments. According to some, Remy's possessions were in bags close to the entryway. Every unsubstantiated detail merely served to fuel the online panic, even if none of it was validated. Once commended for his steadfast devotion, Papoose was now at the heart of a raging controversy. His silence, which had always been considered calm and deferential, was now perceived as a sign of guilt. Supporters wanted explanations. Celebrities started to comment, some of them in favor. Remy and others are calling for moderation, but all recognize the scandal's scope. Then, suddenly, a new video appeared. Outside the facility, security cameras showed the altercation from a different perspective. This time, the video showed Remy walking toward the woman, pausing for a moment, tightening her hands, and clearly suppressing her tears prior to the explosion. The moment wasn't driven by anger, it was heartache. The audience started to see her as a woman who had been pushed past her emotional breaking point rather than just someone who had lost control. Once more altered the story. Public opinion started to change. Sympathy for Remy grew as criticism of the attack itself continued. For hours, the hashtag #ProtectCourt was trending on Twitter, in response to the grief she must have been experiencing. At the time, women all across the internet shared tales of betrayal and emotional breakdown. What started out as a scandal is now being avoided as a tragedy. A warning about love, loyalty, and the dangers of having too much faith. Then the most explosive growth of all occurred. An anonymous user posing as the ex-boyfriend of the real side chick emailed a number of gossip blogs. He posted screenshots, purported DMZ, and even voicemails showing that this woman had dated more than only Papoose in the past year. He claimed that she constantly found a way to become involved in drama, targeted married or committed guys, and approached them with deceptive business possibilities and manipulation. Should even half of it be accurate, it depicted a much harsher picture than anyone had expected. Rhee's response suddenly seemed less spontaneous and more like the tipping point of a woman who has been deliberately singled out, provoked, and emotionally undermined by someone with a purpose. This did not, however, clarify Papoose's function. At last, he made his first public appearance with a broken heart emoji and a black screen in an Instagram story post without a caption. The fans were incensed. That was all he said. The response came right away after he spent years teaching about love and fidelity after witnessing his wife being detained, humiliated, and dragged through the mud. His accounts were unfollowed by prominent hip-hop accounts. His on-air quiet was attacked by a number of radio broadcasters. When asked about the incident, even his close associates turned their backs on him and refused to comment. There were rumors that they were splitting up. There were rumors that divorce documents were already being prepared. Others maintained that all of this was a major misunderstanding that would be resolved. However, there was no denying that something had broken between Papoose and Remy, and fixing it was not going to be simple. More startling information came to light in the days that followed. According to an event planner, Papoose had never before asked for a +1 invitation to the party, and he had done so weeks in advance. When asked, she claimed he casually mentioned that he would be bringing a new artist he was mentoring. This particular feature was ideal for a stylist's timeline. It raised suspicions even more by implying that Papoose was aware of long before Remy. Her accounts were removed, She was taken from the client list by her agency. According to several insiders, she left the state because of the criticism and possible legal action from Rhee's team. Some thought she was just hiding and waiting for the situation to subside. However, nobody was forgetting. Once a representation of progress and redemption, Remy Ma was now embroiled in a narrative of betrayal, pain, and wrath. After her previous incarceration, her image was meticulously restored. Dangled in the air now. Even though they were fervently devoted, her fans were beginning to worry about what might happen next. Would she say anything? Would Papoose at last speak up in a significant way? Would this enigmatic woman ever come forward to share her perspective? Everyone was watching, since this was more than just celebrity rumors, and everything was moving quickly and wildly. It was an unadulterated tragedy, and the next chapter was rapidly approaching. New fires erupted, promising to rekindle the flames that had just begun to fade as the dust from the original scandal started to settle ever so little. The following installment appeared just when fans believed they had seen the worst. A private film that was leaked by an anonymous source caught everyone off guard and sent shock over the internet, taking the already tense situation to a whole new level. Just 3 nights before the notorious party where the public altercation took place, the shaky but damning video seemed to show Papoose and the claimed side chick entering a posh hotel together. The clip was time-stamped and compared to Papoose's social media posts, which ironically featured him advertising an event in the same neighborhood. The fans went crazy because the timelines lined up perfectly. It was no longer mere conjecture. This was tangible proof that was aired to millions of people and captured in pixels. Papoose's stillness abruptly started to scream guilt. His devoted following began to disintegrate. He had been a black love hero, but now he was being called a liar, a hypocrite, and worse, a fraud. Theories exploded on forums. Hours passed on. Twitter Spaces. The timeline was broken down by TikTok creators. The hotel video and other interviews in which Papoose extolled his unwavering devotion to Remy Ma. Everything he had ever said was now being suspiciously repeated. It was more than simply an emotional betrayal. It had a cultural vibe. The Remy Papoose had stood for years as a testament to perseverance and restoration. They are now evidence that love can withstand media attention, industrial temptation, and prison walls. However, that image was now fragmented and dispersed over blog entries, live streaming, and countless internet discussions. At last, Remy Ma reappeared as this pandemonium came to a head through a series of mysterious Instagram stories rather than an interview or statement. It featured a fuzzy image of her son's hands grasping hers, an old picture of her and Papoose from her visits to the prison, and a dark screen with the words, "Trust is dead, so is my silence." It was quickly shared online and had no words. It was a clear and loud statement. Remy had had enough of being quiet. However, her team didn't say anything. News outlets demanded a press conference, or at least an official explanation. But her camp remained silent despite the numerous requests. Rather, there were whispers that Remy had begun pursuing legal action behind closed doors. According to several gossip insiders, she had engaged a different investigator to investigate Papoose's actions last year, including those involving other possible ladies in addition to the side chick. The story was changing quickly. This was no longer an isolated incident. This might have been a serious pattern. Even more startling was the assertion it was her first public statement after the tragedy, and it set off a chain reaction of rumors. Was she going to reveal everything? Was she going to change the story? Would she provide messages, images, or even recordings that would further harm Remy or further ruin Papoose? Once more, everything was in the balance. Remy faced criticism, betrayal, and isolation. Papoose was surrounded, quiet, and quickly losing support from the public. The side chick was making a comeback. The entire globe was keeping an eye on it, anticipating the next big story, the next leak, or the next turn in the most shocking. And just when everyone believed they had seen it all, a darker revelation was on the horizon. There was a tangible tension in the air, like the moments before a thunderstorm, as the internet waited for the supposed sidewoman to make a move. People had been waiting for her alleged side of the tale to surface on their screens for days. Some people thought it was all a ruse. Others thought she was, and bring Papoose and Remy Ma into even more scandal. However, her complete post was neither a podcast nor a video when it was eventually published. It was a long statement, a full confession penned and posted as an Instagram note with dark, black and white pictures of her face wounded and hidden. She said in the statement that she never meant for things to become this bad. Although she denied having a physical relationship with Papoose, she acknowledged that they had been emotionally involved. She described their relationship as complex, stating that it began as mentorship, evolved into flirtation, and ultimately crossed emotional boundaries that neither of them completely acknowledged. The post was filled with ambiguous hints and cautious wording that subtly suggests misconduct without outright acknowledging it. Her claims that Remy Ma had been observing her for months, attending gatherings without permission, sending oblique signals and cautioning others to keep her away from my man, however, were what really set the internet on fire. Remy's detractors immediately jumped in. They portrayed her as extremely insecure, unstable, and obsessed. She couldn't handle the reality, so they started calling her a ticking time bomb, which eventually blew on live. In a post, the side chick's supporters claimed that Remy had always been dubious, constantly pursuing shadows, and ultimately assaulted someone who hadn't even physically crossed the limit. Trending hashtags were #FreeTheTruth and #RemyGoneTooFar. Suddenly, the public's opinion of Remy began to change once more. Not completely, but enough to create yet another significant rift in the public's perception. Papoose had yet to speak, but his quiet was no longer shielding him. It was denouncing him. Insiders in the industry started sharing observations. According to an unidentified former tour manager, Papoose recently stopped in Atlanta and asked Remy to make separate hotel reservations, which had never occurred in their years of collaboration. Despite both of them being booked, a promoter said that Papoose had gone to gigs by himself without inviting Remy throughout the previous 12 months. These minor discrepancies started to mount up. Fans started calling him manipulative, and the once admired portrayal of a loving husband was now tainted with flaws. A man who, although contemplating temptations in private, knew how to play the loyalty card in public. But what no one anticipated was the appearance of a second woman. As the world digested the side chick's comments, another woman surfaced online, claiming to have receipts that showed Papoose had also spoken with her, despite openly endorsing Remy's comeback tours. She sent pictures of herself backstage at concerts where Remy was the main act. Late-night messages and screenshots of Des. The screenshot's validity is questioned by some, but the facts and timestamps were uncannily accurate. Fans felt as though they had only touched the surface of Papoose's purported double life, and this new development further widened the story. 3 further anonymous accounts with comparable claims emerged on the same day. Each told a story of emotional manipulation, vacuous promises, and casual flirtation. Long-term affairs were not claimed by any of them, but the pattern was becoming indisputable. Papoose was now seen as a chronic emotional cheater rather than a loyal husband. Someone who dissolved boundaries behind closed doors but may not have always gone out in person. And for Remy Ma, this hazy boundary was the most agonizing realization. According to others close to her, the extent of the betrayal as well as the act itself crushed her. It was not a singular occurrence. It was a series of gestures, moments, and silent betrayals. Each one is minor enough to be denied separately, but when combined, they become a mountain of emotional dishonesty. After reading one of the anonymous demos, a former friend of Remy's apparently broke down in private, stating, "I don't even know who he is anymore." That statement alone was shared on social media more than 1 million times. The legal ramifications increased along with the emotional stakes. Citing witness accounts from the evening of the event and video footage, prosecutors proceeded with the assault prosecution, a counterclaim of harassment and emotional distress against the claim's side. Chick prompted a prompt response from Ree's legal team. She had deliberately baited Remy, they said, employed psychological blackmail, and even conspired with paparazzi to release video of the fight in order to get notoriety. It was a powerful legal move that suggested a bigger game was being played. In the background, this judicial action changed the course of events. Remy's team may lower her charges and reassign guilt to the lady who was now acting as the victim online if they could demonstrate that she had been coerced or forced into the altercation. The internet saw the court. Records were stored. Hearings were planned, and attorneys exchanged remarks. Betrayal was no longer the only issue. Now, it was a high-profile legal drama that might result in Remy being redeemed and cleared or going back to jail. As the issue grew, it started to affect endorsements and business transactions. Recently, a sneaker company that had partnered with Remy to create a line of women's empowerment shoes quietly canceled the project. Her scheduled appearance on a talk show was abruptly postponed indefinitely. Even Papoose had to deal with the fallout. His name was taken off of advertising materials for a podcast he was guest hosting. Both sides of the relationship were losing, and public trust was eroding. Fans were starting to wonder if their favorite celebrity couples were truly as ideal as they appeared to be at the same time. Wider discussions concerning public personalities versus private actions were sparked by the Remy and Papoose breakup, which turned into a cultural flashpoint. Podcasts discussed it. Relationship counselors provided their opinions. Celebrities presented ambiguous subtweets that many people took to be about the circumstance. Everyone was conversing. Everybody had a viewpoint. Then there was still another surprising turn. Remy's ex-girlfriend broke her silence in a TikTok that has since been removed. Her heartfelt statement about seeing someone you love give everything and still get harmed threw fans into yet another frenzy. Even though she was cautious not to name anyone. According to some, she was verifying Ree's emotional condition. Others stated it demonstrated the extent to which the treachery had impacted their family. Before it was taken down, perhaps at Ree's request, the video was repeatedly screen captured, reposted, and examined. Even Ree's most personal problems were now a matter of public view. Despite everything, she had remained silent on camera. More than ever, that quiet was creating suspense. When she did speak, what would she say? Would she lose it, remain strong, forgive Papoose, or simply leave? However, one last shock was subtly developing behind the scenes as fans awaited that moment, the scenes. A turn of events that would rock the scandal to its foundation. Data recovered from cloud backups and other devices revealed encrypted conversations and deleted correspondence between Papoose and the side chick. According to private investigators hired by Ree's legal team, unnamed legal sources claimed that this evidence demonstrated that Papoose knew of the woman's attendance at the party in advance and that he had maintained illicit contact with her. The idea that the altercation was unplanned or motivated only by envy was disproved by this discovery. It introduced a betrayal element that was too significant to be written off as a coincidence. Even worse, some of the texts purportedly showed Papoose making fun of Remy behind her back, ignoring her worries, disparaging her intuition, and implying that she was too sensitive to comprehend the demands of his job. Remy was reportedly rendered speechless by these purported messages, which have not yet been made public. Once supportive Pepsi fans have now completely abandoned the brand. Peers in the industry stopped answering his calls. Ironic memes were created from old interview recordings, in which he talked about being the ideal husband. In real time, his brand was crashing. Additionally, he had no words, just consequences for the first time in his career. But something else started to show through all the shadows. A wave of support for Remy Ma that is modest but strong. Women started to reclaim their grief as strength on all social media sites. Old interviews about her tenacity, her escape from prison, and her times of resurgence were reprinted. The arrest was no longer considered a fall. It was beginning to represent crumbling under pressure after silently bearing too much for too long. And Remy ultimately made her comeback public just as that support peaked. Aliva scheduled an interview with her. Just the title chilled me. Rest or ruin, says Remy. There were promotions everywhere. The countdown has started. Fans, detractors, the media, and business experts all anxiously awaited her announcement. Because Remy Ma was at last prepared to speak after weeks of humiliation, silence, relaxation, and betrayal. The expectation was unlike anything the hip-hop community had witnessed in years. And nothing would ever be the same again. Millions of people were glued to their televisions as the countdown to Remy Ma's long-awaited interview reached zero. This was more than a simple interview. It was a proclamation, a reckoning, and the last opportunity to bring order out of chaos and salvage honor from shame. The world went quiet as the camera panned in on her, sitting erect but obviously exhausted. While the host greeted the audience, everyone's attention was on Remy. Every breath, every blink, every change in posture was closely examined. Her face was marked by defiance as much as sadness and tiredness. Her narrative wasn't the only reason she was here. She came to take ownership of it. The host started the conversation by summarizing the circumstances that led to Remy's current situation. What previously looked to be an unbreakable love was shattered by the live confrontation, the arrest, the online warfare, the leaked demise, and the treachery. Remy listened silently, her jaw tensed, her eyes fixed, and then she spoke slowly. The results of the following 90 minutes were nothing short of astounding. Remy exposed months of mistrust, sleepless nights doubting her instincts and witnessing the transformation of a loved one into an unfamiliar person. She clarified that she had initially sensed a problem almost a year prior, but she had brushed it off, save her marriage. She held herself responsible for ignoring it, remaining silent, and putting devotion ahead of reason. When Papoose's explanations failed to make sense, she acknowledged that she had hired a private investigator. She felt gaslighted into questioning her when the receipts didn't match his accounts. Own world. She said she was devastated by the findings of the study. The late-night rendezvous, the emotional infidelity, and the developing closeness with a woman Remy had once accepted as a creative partner. When she noticed the insulting remarks, the contemptuous language, and the total lack of regret, everything fell apart for her. Then came the surprise that nobody had anticipated. According to Remy, she had politely and discreetly contacted the woman before the live incident. She claimed that she requested that she respect the purity of their relationship, keep her distance, and cease interacting with her husband. She said that she merely brought a plea and no charges or threats. However, rather than complying, she was subjected to eerie social media messages, subtle jabs, and premeditated appearances in locations she knew Remy would frequent. Remy talked about being embarrassed by the arrogance as well as the treachery. This was more than infidelity to her. It was combat. She was also intended to be unhinged by psychological warfare. To make her appear unstable in front of the world, provoke her. Additionally, when she entered the party and noticed how close they were, laughing and bothered, everything fell apart. She didn't retract what she had done that evening. She made no justifications. Rather, she described the months-long mental maelstrom that had been building, the internal struggles, the bewilderment, and the heartache of seeing everything she had worked so hard to create fall apart in front of a room full of people who were all acting as though they didn't. See? According to her, it was the most agonizing experience of her life. It validated the arrest or the headlines that the guy she had loved unconditionally supported during her time in prison, and shielded from the darkest storms in the industry. Long before the world knew, he had already abandoned her. An exclusive behind-the-scenes video of Remy in her house during the aftermath was then shown during the interview. Images showing her sitting alone in her studio, a video of her erasing old pictures, and a scene in which she silently folded up one of Papoose's sweatshirts and put it in a box. It was painful, human, and raw. Fans were reminded that below the drama, the music, and the headlines, there was a lady who had just loved too much. However, Remy changed course just as it appeared that the interview might end in heartache. She disclosed that, in addition to protecting her son, her job, and her mental health, she had filed for legal separation days following the arrest. She talked about going to therapy, rewriting her story, and reestablishing her identity. She declared that her new period would be one of openness, boundaries, and honesty, and that the days of being on the silent ride or die were ended. The global audience was in a state of shock. Comments were flooding in. Social media was inundated with support. Use of hashtags such as #RemyRising and #StandWithRemy took the place of the tone that had been ridiculing for weeks. However, Papoose's world started to fall apart even more when Remy took back her voice. Other women came forward in the days after the interview. Small details, lighthearted flirtations, instances of boundary breaking, and pictures from after parties that ran counter to his previously impeccable timetable were used instead of explosive stories. One particularly noteworthy communication was a snapshot purportedly showing Papoose texting a woman. Months prior to the live incident, "I love how you understand me more than anyone else." The tweet went viral within hours. Brands started cutting. Connections deals were removed by booking agents. The public's backing vanished. Papoose then posted a written statement on his Instagram profile in a last-ditch effort to recover his story. So it's a mixture of remorse and explanation. He admitted to hurting Remy and referred to her as his queen for eternity. But he insisted that what transpired wasn't premeditated and that they had been going through it in private for some time. Although he promised to support her as the mother of their family and asked fans for space, the harm had already been done. It felt like too little, too late, and hollow platitudes. Remy remained silent. Rather, she continued to concentrate on her recovery. She set up shop in the studio to write new music, snippets of her journaling, going on long walks, working out, and hanging out with her son. It wasn't a spectacular return. It was strong, silent, and purposeful. She wasn't only getting by, she was taking back her identity. In the meantime, the live altercation case took an unexpected turn. Ree's legal team provided proof that the alleged side chick had harassed her online and used targeted taunts to antagonize her at the party. Additionally, they provided testimony from other witnesses attesting to the woman's use of disparaging language and her attempt to attract Ree's attention throughout the event. Following protracted talks, the assault charge was lowered as the prosecution's evidence deteriorated. Remy agreed to treatment sessions, paid a fine, avoided jail time, and pledged to perform community service, something she was already doing. Even though it was a quiet victory, it was nevertheless a victory. The public's perception had completely changed by the time the legal death was resolved. Remy Ma was no longer the antagonist of this tale. It's the lady who was despised. The phoenix, emerging from the ashes of public betrayal, was the survivor. Once a martyr on the internet, the side girl had fallen into obscurity. Once an idol, Papoose was now a warning about how quickly public support can fade when you betray those who had the most faith in you. Remy then started working on a documentary that would take an in-depth, unvarnished look at her life at that period. Her marriage, the betrayal, the imprisonment, her ascent back into the music business, and her subsequent triumphant rebirth all occurred while she was incarcerated. Under the title Unshaken, fans were promised never-before-seen video diary. entries and interviews with her closest friends and family. Remy made her first significant public appearance since the scandal a few months later at the Bet Hip Hop Awards. She walked the red carpet by herself, bold and self-assured, her fiery red outfit representing fire and survival. The throng roared. Reporters flocked as cameras flashed. It wasn't for gossip, though. It was out of respect. She hesitated as she glanced across the audience when she took the stage to give an award. The quiet was overwhelming. They thought, "They broke me. But I wasn't made to break," she added. There was loud applause. She didn't simply win the room that time. The culture was gained by her. She demonstrated that she was capable of rising above controversy, betrayal, and public humiliation as a woman reborn rather than as a victim or someone's wife. Thus, the tale ended with Remy standing tall, unflinching. An unrepentantly free, not with handcuffs, a courtroom, or even retaliation, but with strength and clarity. The narrative finished with something much more potent than the spectacular live footage. That started it. A lady who is stronger than ever as she reclaims her history, finds her voice, and embarks on her next chapter. There you have it, Kay, a tale of heartache, treachery, and eventual salvation. Fans have been moved and left dumbfounded by Remy Ma's path from public scandal to personal power. However, what are your thoughts? Did she finally defend herself after years of being pushed too far? Quiet agony. Please share your opinions in the comments section below. Everything is being read by us. Remember to like this, watch, hit that bell, and subscribe for more astounding updates.